Good day. The 90s through the early 2000s was truly the best era in gaming thus far. Technology had improved to the point where things looked like things, and devs were still free to explore new and imaginative concepts. So get this, what if you made a game where you controlled an aircraft and popped a certain number of balloons to reach a certain score under a time limit? Sounds neat enough. Now, what if you control this aircraft with a pedal-powered controller? The 90s. I miss them so. Prop Cycle was developed and published by the legendary Namco and released to arcades in 1996 and featured a game controller. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that's what it is. That you, the player, pedaled to propel the titular prop cycle. This is one of the most, if not the most, unique ways of controlling a game I have ever seen. It mixes gaming with exercise, and it works really well, and makes this one of the most unique gaming experiences one can have. The game features two game modes. You have Novice and Expert. Novice just lets you get used to the controls, and Expert is the whole game. Expert features 4 stages, 3 of which you can choose in any order. In each stage, you will need to find and pop a certain number of balloons to reach a certain number of points before the time runs out. The point counts are very fair, and if you lose, you will have to put in more dosh, but the point count will be lowered. And thankfully, the balloons are placed in a fair way as well, and you don't have to be a pro MLG to reach the max score. The final stage of the game is a marathon stage where you have to fly through some really tough obstacles and you get only one try. If you lose, you gotta start all the way from the beginning. But considering how fair the game is, this is a game where one had a decent chance of finishing for less than $10. The game controls really well, and with the original controller, one could legitimately feel like they are flying through the air with the greatest of ease. This game emulates quite well on MAME and plays excellently with a standard gamepad. And no, you don't have to hit a button over and over again to pedal the plane. Instead, you just hold down one button and away you go. Even with this, the game is a fun enough challenge that it does not get boring, and if you were an intrepid follower of the machine god, you could potentially rig something up with an old exercise bike and a few sensors, but a base controller still works just fine. The 90s was an era where imagination was the order of the day, and gamers, even though they were smaller in number than they are today, showed their love by keeping games like this popular for decades, and even in the space galactic year 2023, Prop Cycle is still an experience worth having, be it in its true arcade form or on MAME. Graphically, the game looks remarkably good. This is from 1996, and I could have sworn it had to have been from the early 2000s at least. The prop cycle looks amazing, and the people in the game have a nice anime aesthetic to them. The levels have a great deal of artistic variety to them, and nothing looks like a nasty block of pixels. Sound is excellent, and I believe it would have given a good illusion of flight. Music is memorable and complements the game well. There is VA work, and it's alright. It's on par with the anime dubs of the day, and the actors put in at least a little effort, and thankfully the high-pitched voices aren't too shrill. This was the 90s. Story, even for a simple game like Prop Cycle, was going to be memorable if nothing else. In-game, there are a few cutscenes that flavor the whole experience, but they don't really explain what is going on. They are a bit silly, and are more in the vein of a childish 90s anime. Your dude is a kid that is getting ready for something called Solitar. You can kind of piece together from the levels that something bad had to have happened, because you find the ruins of a city during one of the levels, and you have to fly through a uranium dump. I hope the Prop Cycle guy here doesn't want to have any kids. The story itself is found outside the game, and it's remarkably deep. The game takes place 200 years after the bombs fell, and civilization has rebuilt, and now they have magical steam engines. Kind of like in Warhammer Fantasy. Some villages have been pulled from the ground and into the sky by an old war machine. A land called Solita has delivered a letter that says that the war machine can be destroyed by taking out some red energy balls. If the machine is taken down, the floating villages will be returned to the ground. That's pretty deep for a game where you pop red balloons. The Prop Cycle even has a name. It's technically a Laparopter. Yes, a simple arcade game went that far. And why are you popping a bunch of balloons in the first place? Because a bunch of pilots tried to take out the energy balls only to fall and die. So each year there is a Solitar. This is where a bunch of intrepid young pilots have to prove themselves by popping a bunch of balloons. You know, this really needed to be an OVA. All of that for a simple arcade game. This is why the 90s rocked and all the modern writers whine, cry, and seethe when no one likes their derivative crap. Imagination is key to being remembered. Imitation gets you nowhere but the unemployment line. The last time I played this arcade game in real life was at my old mall, probably 25 years ago, and I still remembered the bloody thing. There was nothing else like it then or now, and that weird pedal controller stuck in my brain. And then one day I came across the name Prop Cycle in my main folder and gave it a try, and all those memories came flooding back. Prop Cycle is an example of why creative freedom is so bloody important. Turning out endless Skinner boxes and cutscene simulators are not good enough. Gamers want new stuff, and with the tech we have today, we should have games that boggle the mind. Prop Cycle will always be a classic, even in 2096, wherein hopefully people start playing it in VR with the whole machine emulated. Needless to say, I cannot recommend this game enough, as even though you're likely going to just be playing it with a regular controller, it still provides a unique enough experience that is most assuredly worth a download. I am GeneralLotz, and I'm going to wish you good Daytona, USA, and good Afterburner, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.